What is the absolute creepiest yet unexplained thing that has ever happened to you? When I was 3, I would pick up a full adult-sized single bed, take it out of my bedroom, put it next to my brother's room, and make my bed perfectly, and go to sleep. My parents never witnessed it, and couldn't explain how a 3-year-old could even drag a mattress out without making noise. They ended up asking me why I kept doing it, and apparently my reply was, there is a bad man in my bedroom and he's scaring me. So the nice lady helps me take my bed out, so I'm safe from him. Totally creepy. Worst part is I remember nothing but the freaky old man in my room. He would sit at the end of my bed and stare at me. I had a terrible dream and woke up screaming. I ran to turn on the light in my room because I still felt terrified. I hit the light switch and the light did that bright flash thing and burned out, so I panicked and opened my bedroom door. There were 2 dark silhouettes, and one reached out to touch me. I woke up again. Turns out that was a dream too. I went to turn my light on, a little less panicked this time, and it was burnt out. I ran upstairs and made my roommate change my light bulb, because every time I tried to go in there I instantly got goosebumps and that not alone feeling. Not so much creepy in the scary sense as the unnerving and unexplainable sense, but I've had quite a few accidental predictions. The most recent one was when a man came up to check out at my lane at work grocery store clerk here, and I went to say my standard "how are you doing today?" and instead said 5972. He just looked at me weird. I blushed, saying I didn't know where that came from, and went about my job. Sure enough, at the end, his total ended up at $59.72, and neither of us could figure how I got that. My brother told me maybe 13 years ago that one night when he was falling asleep, he heard a loud bang sound. Not like a gunshot, but more of something hitting the wall at a high speed. He opened his eyes to find me standing in the dark corner of his room. My eyes were glowing red, he said. All he really saw was my shadowy figure and these bright red eyes. He called to me, asking what the hell. Apparently, I didn't answer. He then continued, saying he turned his head to the clock near his bed and quickly looked back at the corner I was standing in, and saw absolutely nothing. I was gone. What's even more terrifying is that he got up and went to his door. It was still locked. He opened it, walked down the hall to see my door still closed. He looked further down the hallway, only to see me standing in the middle of the hallway with my still glowing red eyes. He opened my door after seeing that, and that's when he became really frightened. There I was, laying passed out on my waterbed. To this day, he can't explain what or who he saw. After he told me all that, I have been seeing those red eyes throughout my life, but only in the dark parts of my house. When in college, I was in a bar, and I was being hit on by a creepy guy. I'm male myself. He was hyperactive, very abusive, and didn't want to take no for an answer. He was also fiddling around with my beer and constantly trying to touch me. Afterwards, when a female friend came to talk to me, he became physically aggressive towards her because he didn't like being ignored / getting his target snooped away from him. This is the point where he got thrown out of the bar by security. I still stayed for like 30 to 60 minutes later and went home. I arrived in my room quite sober, had a few beers, but nothing extraordinary, and turned on my PC to answer some emails. I still remember reading the emails and their contents. I even responded to some in a very normal way. The next thing I remember, it's morning and I'm lying on my mattress, that itself is magically not inside my bed frame anymore, but on the floor, and I'm completely naked. My PC is still quietly purring. As I'm quite good at handling alcohol, I'm quite sure the guy drugged me, but I'm not sure, and I have no idea why I decided to remove the mattress from my bed and sleep on it naked. I really don't like losing control, and this still bothers me years later. I'm in the shower, home alone. As I'm showering, something falls, lands on the top of my head, and sits there. I tilt my head to get whatever it is that has fallen there off, and a penny falls off, hits the shower floor. I pick it up and think to myself, that's odd. There's no place for a penny to have fallen from, and continue about my day. A couple days later, when I'm telling this story to my mom, I realize how freaky it is, and it absolutely terrifies me. At the time though, it didn't bother me at all. This isn't the only odd thing that happened in that bathroom either. Posted before, so I'm just gonna copy and paste it. From a "Do you believe in haunted such and such" thread. I don't believe my mother's house is haunted. Nothing ever strange happened there except for one time. I was woken up from my sleep in the middle of the night by what I thought was my little sister. No one had said anything or touched me in any way to wake me up, but that feeling you get when someone is just standing in the room staring at you. You can feel their presence. Well, that's what woke me up, the presence of a little girl. It was pitch black, so I couldn't see a thing, but I could feel someone there, and it felt like it could be my little sister, but whoever was there was angry. The malevolent presence of a young girl. I asked quietly, "Mary, what are you doing in here?" I got no response, just felt that angry presence. I told myself I was imagining things, but I was paralyzed with fear by this point. It was very angry, and I felt it pretty heavily. After a few minutes I convinced myself that it had to be my younger sister who was absolutely furious with me, or perhaps was sleepwalking, and I was working myself into a fit for no reason. Then suddenly I was struck in the crotch, not too hard, but definitely hard enough to be from an angry 14-year-old, moaning why a little more loudly that I should have, wondering why my little sister wanted to punch me in the junk. I turned on the light, only to find no one was standing there, and the door was shut quite tightly. Utterly confused, I went to check on my mother and my sister, and both were sound asleep. I didn't go back to sleep that night. That's the only strange thing that ever happened. I don't know if it was a ghost. It could have easily been my mind playing tricks on me, even making me believe I got punched, I guess, but it always felt like it was a ghost to me. TL. Dr. Angry Ghost of a little girl cock punched me one time. It felt bad. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, as I was shutting down my computer back in the days where you had to wait for the "it is now safe to turn off your computer" screen. I was just in the process of pushing the button when it or something just said no really loud. It was a second too late. My mum was sitting with me, and we just stared at each other in shock. I also once started leaking a blue inky substance from my skin, which my doctors couldn't explain. Stopped after a few days though, so I didn't bother pushing the issue. My mom tells a story about a time when I was about 6 and one of her close friends was pregnant and came over for lunch. They explained that she had a baby in her tummy and let me put my hand there. My mom said I got a curious look on my face, looked up at the woman, and said, "There's two, a boy and a girl." The woman laughed and made some joke about not needing more than one. The next week the woman called my mom a bit freaked and told her she just had her ultrasound and was having twins, a boy and a girl. I had a very realistic dream where I kept seeing different scenes of my dad dying in different ways, and then in my dream I had different flash forward scenes of me in the future where events were happening that my dad would have been a part of, like not having dad to walk me down the aisle when I get married, no daddy-daughter dance at the reception, he'll never get to meet any of his grandkids, even a family dinner. And how it felt so wrong to say table 4 for when all my life it was table 4-5. Then, 3 weeks later, my dad did die. Background: back in April, a good friend of mine committed suicide. He had drug and alcohol problems. We had known each other since 9th grade, dated for 3 weeks, remained friends until he moved to Florida in 2010/2011. I live in a two-story house. My bedroom is in the downstairs part of the house. Right outside my bedroom door is a door to the garage, which has another door to go outside. I was very upset that night about my friend passing away, and I remember crying and wish I could just talk to him or see him one last time. Well, I went to bed and woke up as per usual, and when I went upstairs my mom stopped me and asked if I had left in the middle of the night. I said no and asked why. She told me she heard the garage door to the outside open and them close, and then heard the door from the garage outside my room open and close, the repeat as if they left. I blew it off and figured she was just hearing things. Later that day I drove out to my dad's house and sat around with my brother, stepmom and grandma. My stepmom asked me if I had stopped over that night. I usually stop in for something to drink or a snack if I'm in the area and it's usually at night, and I said no and asked why. My stepmom and my brother both told me that they heard someone come in through the garage door, walk through to the back to the house and then leave. My grandma heard nothing because she could sleep through a freaking tornado. I put the time together and the incident at my dad's happened before the one at my mom's. I'm usually pretty skeptical about these kinds of things, but it absolutely blew my mind. I honestly, truly believe that my friend was looking for me. I cried the whole way to work, but it's given me sort of a peace of mind knowing that he tried to find me. Edit, a word.